All right, let's talk about secrets. Way before computers and encrypted apps, how did people keep their most dangerous secrets safe? Today, we're diving into the world of classical cryptography to uncover the fascinating origins of secret messages.
You know, it's so easy for us today, right? Encrypted messages are just there. We don't even think about it. But I want you to imagine being an ancient Roman, or a Renaissance diplomat, or even a general during a war. In a world with zero computers, how in the world did you protect your most vital secrets from prying eyes?
To really get this, you've got to put yourself in their shoes. Imagine a world where every single secret had to be written down on paper and then physically carried by a messenger. Interception wasn't some abstract digital risk. It was a constant physical threat.
And the stakes? I mean, they were unbelievably high. For the military, a leaked battle plan could lose you the entire war. For diplomats, a revealed negotiation could literally change the map of the world. And yeah, even for regular folks, keeping things private was a huge deal for business and personal matters.
So what do? The solution was actually brilliant. It was a complete mindset shift. You just had to assume your message was going to get captured. So the real goal wasn't hiding the scroll itself, but hiding the meaning of the words on it, making it total gibberish to anyone except the right person.
And that very need, well, that's what gave birth to the first real systems for secret writing, the original codes.
The fancy term for all this stuff is classical cryptography. And honestly, the name says it all. This is classical, as in, before computers. Every single transformation of the text was done by hand. Pen, paper, maybe a simple little gadget if you were lucky, but that's it. And this right here is the crucial point. Your security depended on keeping one of two things secret, either the entire method you were using or a specific piece of information we now call a key. And think about that for a second. If the enemy figured out your system, poof, every single secret message you'd ever sent was suddenly wide open. Okay, so how did they actually hide the meaning? Well, it turns out that pretty much all of these ancient and medieval ciphers boiled down to just two fundamental tricks.
Substitution and transposition. That's the whole game. Substitution is just what it sounds like. You swap each letter for a different one. An A becomes a B becomes a C, and so on. With transposition, you keep all the original letters, but you just scramble their order. You just shuffle them up. So one swaps the letters, the other changes their positions. And here's the wild part. These two super simple ideas are still the basic building blocks of the crazy complex encryption that protects all our data today.
So, for instance, some ciphers would just systematically shift the whole alphabet over. Others would get more creative, maybe writing a message into a grid and then rearranging it by reading it out in a jumbled way. It's just amazing how many clever historical codes were built on these two simple foundations.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Swapping letters? Shuffling them around? It sounds kind of like a kid's game, doesn't it? And that's a totally fair question. If these techniques were so basic, why on earth did emperors, spies, and generals trust them with their most vital secrets for literally thousands of years?
The answer is actually beautiful in its simplicity. The playing field was level. The person making the code and the person trying to break it were basically in an equal fight, armed with the same tools.
I mean, just look at what the attacker was up against. No computers to just brute force billions of combinations. Every single attempt at decoding had to be done by hand, which was just agonizingly slow. Your success depended entirely on a flash of human insight, a lucky guess, or just painstaking manual work.
But that era couldn't last forever. Human ingenuity, it cuts both ways. As the code makers got cleverer, so did the code breakers. And pretty soon, the cracks in classical cryptography really started to show. Take a look at this encrypted message. To the untrained eye, it's just a bunch of gibberish, right? Looks perfectly secure, like a random mess of letters. But watch what happens when we start looking for patterns. The letter G appears 3 times. The letter J also appears 3 times, and look at that little 2-letter word QH. It shows up twice. Suddenly, it's not so random anymore, is it? An astute codebreaker sees these patterns and realizes, aha, this isn't just noise, it's a puzzle with clues. And that exposes the fatal flaw. These simple ciphers, they leaked information about the original text. They were vulnerable to techniques like frequency analysis, exploiting the simple fact that in English, for example, the letter E shows up way more often than the letter Z. Once attackers developed systematic ways to hunt for these statistical clues, the security of these early ciphers just collapsed. But the failure of classical cryptography wasn't an end, not at all. In fact, it was the necessary catalyst for everything that came next.
If you really want to understand modern encryption, you have to understand why the old ways broke.
You can see the whole journey unfold right here. It starts in that classical era of manual ciphers. Then you hit the breaking point, where systematic analysis and the very first machines start to crack these codes faster than they can be invented. And that failure? It directly paved the way for the modern computer-driven era of cryptography we live in today.
So what's the big takeaway here? First, classical cryptography was the essential starting point. You had to start somewhere. Second, it gave us those core ideas, like substitution and transposition. And most importantly, its eventual failure was the very thing that forced the invention of the powerful, modern encryption we all rely on now. So, we've set the foundation. We know the what, the why, and the ultimate weakness of these first codes. So where do we go from here? Well, next time, we're going to explore the simple yet revolutionary cipher allegedly used by Julius Caesar himself, the one that really started it all. You're not going to want to miss that.